Sertan played a great game against the Patriots, but I don't think he was too impressed and does not think New England has got much of a chance this Sunday. Take a listen.
You got a score prediction for Super Bowl 60?
35-7 Seattle.
Predictions seem a little bit more like sour grapes, maybe.
Oh, yeah, there was a little bit of
A little bit of sour.
It's a little bit of a poker thing because of the sunglasses. I couldn't tell if his feelings were hurt, if it was real or not.
I think it was a little sour grapes.
I
think it was a way of saying if Bo Nix doesn't get hurt, we're in this game.
I think they feel like we win if Bo Nix. Why wouldn't you?
Right.
They can feel that way the rest of their life.
Right. Right. It doesn't matter. But that was my read on it as well.
All right. So.
You know, I really need to underscore this point. This is one of those unusual situations where I'm already familiar with the video segment beforehand, and I always like to point that out when it happens, because my purpose here isn't to fabricate some kind of disingenuous, performative reaction. So, because I had previously created a clip concerning the New England Patriots, or I suppose it was more focused on the Seattle Seahawks and their potential for a lopsided defeat, when I caught this particular part of the analysis, I immediately thought, wow, I need to craft a Denver Broncos piece from this. And let's be clear, this isn't about sour grapes, or even about Mangini. Now listen, I comprehend the perspective Mangini is offering. His angle is a bit more entertaining, more tongue-in-cheek. It's undoubtedly stemming from a place of rivalry. But, you know, he occupies a role as an analyst. He's on national television, so I'm going to hold him to a distinct criterion or examine his comments through a somewhat altered filter. However, I believe it is utterly reasonable that the Broncos organization and their supporters feel the way they do. It is entirely reasonable. And I'm not necessarily arguing that anyone should be consumed by sympathy. Although, for some peculiar reason, expressing empathy for someone, or for a player, a team, or a fan base, we often conflate that with a form of fragility. I'm not sure why. It's strange. We really shouldn't. But what I mean is, I don't believe we have genuinely grasped, or perhaps we haven't sufficiently underscored or valued what the Denver Broncos managed to secure and accomplish this season, and the reality that it was essentially stripped away from them due to Bo Nix's injury. I acknowledge we will never know with certainty how that championship contest would have unfolded. Perhaps Bo Nix performs even more poorly, correct? Perhaps he throws 5 interceptions and fumbles 5 times, and you're left thinking, that was the most disastrous performance by a quarterback in the history of the sport. Maybe that's the scenario. Who understands how fate operates? It works in enigmatic ways, but the tangible fact is this. Consider the jubilation. Contemplate this. Consider the celebration that the New England Patriots are indulging in at this very moment. The dramatic reversal, what Mike Vrabel has implemented, Drake May, and my goodness, they've already reached the Super Bowl after the departure of Tom Brady. They endured a 5 or 6 year period, whatever the precise figure was. They had this prolonged stretch of struggle, and now observe them. They've returned. It's a commemoration of excellence. It's a commemoration of what is achievable when you are a competently managed organization, when you execute correct choices and distance yourself from poor ones, and so forth. It's akin to a celebration of potential, and it certainly casts a scrutinizing light on some of these other franchises, doesn't it? You think, look at you, Cleveland Browns, just look at you. Many other clubs fail to reach the postseason entirely. Then there are the teams where you wonder, what about you, Buffalo Bills? What about you, Baltimore Ravens? What about you, Dallas Cowboys? Sure, you've qualified for the playoffs, you've attained some success, but you haven't advanced to the Super Bowl. Observe what we have achieved. And this is merely the second year with Drake May, the first full year with Vrabel and May. And that narrative was the Denver Broncos' story. That was the Broncos' story. I mean, earnestly, they ventured out and executed a phenomenal transaction by acquiring Peyton Manning. Let's not feign that was a simple, straightforward decision. Individuals were somewhat skeptical. Will this be effective? Is his career finished due to his neck issues? It wasn't this effortless, guaranteed success, a no-brainer. It simply wasn't. That was a spectacular maneuver. It guided them to multiple Super Bowls, and clearly, a victory. Subsequently, it was a gradual, pretty much continuous decline from that pinnacle. They encountered difficulty rediscovering their foundation, a perpetual cycle of quarterbacks and coaches, and naturally, the concurrent rise of the Kansas City Chiefs. This aligned almost precisely with the Chiefs' ascendance, beginning with Alex Smith and Andy Reid, and certainly accelerating with Patrick Mahomes. Then, they made another significant, headline-grabbing move to obtain Russell Wilson, which proved to be an incorrect decision, compensating him an astronomical sum. And, oh my, they eventually declared, sufficient is sufficient. They secured Sean Payton. Sean Payton attempted to make the situation functional. And then what transpired? Within approximately 12 to 14 weeks, he essentially concluded, this collaboration with Russ is not viable. These are profoundly challenging, ruthless determinations. They draft Bo Nix, and everyone ridicules and mocks them. The commentary is, this is absurdly comical. I am thrilled the Broncos are pursuing this course because, as a Chiefs supporter, this is fantastic. The Broncos will simply persist in their inadequacy, and Sean Payton isn't truly that exceptional. And oh my. Yet, within 2 years of selecting Bo Nix, they are situated to compete in the Super Bowl. Sean Payton has radically transformed that squad. The defense has been revolutionized. The offense has been reconfigured. Everything. Every element that signifies the pinnacle of what a formidable franchise can represent. The Denver Broncos demonstrated that. They illustrated the difficulty. They employed an individual who ultimately proved ineffective, their equivalent of the Patriots' misstep. They terminated that association and then recruited a proven coach, Sean Payton, akin to Vrabel, and so on. They secured a young quarterback in his second season, correct? They executed every correct action. The Broncos were exceedingly astute in free agency. Reflect on the free agent acquisitions they made that directly contributed to constructing an elite defensive unit and similar accomplishments. They made the proper decisions. In numerous respects, all the dialogues individuals are presently conducting regarding the New England Patriots, Drake May, and Vrabel. Consider Vrabel's stock. It is absolutely skyrocketing. They are incessantly praising Robert Kraft and every single action the Patriots have undertaken. It has been an uninterrupted adoration festival for Drake May, for Diggs, for anyone even tangentially involved. It has been a continuous love fest that was destined to be the Broncos. You could literally substitute New England Patriots with Denver Broncos, replace Drake May with Bo Nix, replace Mike Vrabel with Sean Payton. Every single element. All the accolades you could utter regarding how magnificent a franchise is, how they've returned to the Super Bowl, it's astonishing, blah, blah, blah. This is the indicator of a legitimately superb franchise, a well-operated organization, etc., etc. Coach, quarterback, receivers, defense. They simply conduct affairs properly. Every one of those statements could have been applied to the Denver Broncos. And now, instead, it has transformed into almost a lamentable footnote. It has become, well, you could believe that indefinitely, it ultimately holds no consequence. And it seems they were deprived of that recognition. They were. And when I express deprived, I don't imply someone deliberately seized it from them. It was merely, destiny, existence, a higher power, whichever. And it's simply, that's disappointing. That is a profound letdown. And you must experience empathy for the Broncos, and that is genuinely disheartening. And professional football is unpredictable because you can possess that singular opportunity, and then you can appear to progressively distance yourself from it, increasingly. I'm not asserting that is the Broncos' future. Another commentator presented a viewpoint a few weeks ago, suggesting this team might not recuperate from this setback. I considered that notion preposterous, and I criticized that perspective extensively. He alluded to the Detroit Lions and so on. The Lions were, as you know, a couple of prudent decisions removed from competing in the Super Bowl. There would be substantial justification to presume they could have secured that Super Bowl victory. There is no rationale to assume they were incapable, correct? There's no basis to believe a notion like, well, even if they had reached the Super Bowl, could they have genuinely triumphed? No. It was 1,000% a plausible outcome, unquestionably. And they did not. And then the subsequent season, they only advanced to the divisional round and are defeated. A single playoff victory. And then the following year, they failed to even qualify for the postseason as things stand. Again, they sustained injuries, they lost assistant coaches, tangible circumstances occurred, particularly injuries to their defensive personnel, all that favorable or unfavorable developments. Therefore, that is why I perceive the Broncos and Lions situations as distinct, Yet it still illustrates the severe, unforgiving nature of the football cosmos. Correct. I mean, there have been numerous exceptionally gifted quarterbacks, truly great quarterbacks, formidable teams, impressive rosters, and so on, that have never situated themselves in a position to capture a Super Bowl, to even reach the Super Bowl. It is arduous. It is tremendously demanding. Express whatever opinion you wish. Josh Allen is elite. Josh Allen is extraordinary. Josh Allen is unequivocally a quarterback capable of leading a team to a Super Bowl. Let's maintain honesty here. Simply examine how Drake May has performed throughout this playoff journey. Josh Allen has demonstrably performed at a superior level over recent years, and the disparity is significant, and yet he has not participated in a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, say what you will regarding his capacity to elevate his performance in the playoffs or various criticisms. He is clearly a singularly talented quarterback. Joe Burrow, unfortunately for him, simply cannot maintain his health. Matthew Stafford performed exceptionally this season, and the Rams' offense was phenomenal. They did not reach the Super Bowl. It's challenging. It is immensely difficult. And the athletes comprehend that. They understand that. I believe that is fairly ingrained in contemporary team culture. I do concede there are some younger players, particularly some young quarterbacks, who simply presume they will be the exception, irrespective of history. They persistently believe it will be effortless for them, that their trajectory will diverge from all others. Yeah, I grasp that it was even challenging for Brady or Mahomes, but not for me. I still think we witnessed that mindset, but I also believe teams, collectively, and the overarching culture of a team for the majority, comprehend that this is arduous. I do think coaching staffs, for the most part, execute a fairly commendable job of instilling that comprehension into the collective consciousness, the essence of the team, so to speak. Therefore, I believe the players, it's not sour grapes. It's merely the awareness that this is so demanding and we were in this extraordinary position, and there is genuinely no assurance we will return to that plateau. Especially when you reference non-quarterback position players, they understand the ease with which injuries can occur, how simple it is to become battered. Consider position players. How frequently do you observe them entering and exiting lineups? Reflect on it. Whether they are a cornerback or a wide receiver, it is exceedingly common for them to miss a couple of contests here, a couple there. You witness it perpetually. You don't observe that as frequently with quarterbacks. That is why quarterbacks perceive the NFL landscape through a fundamentally different prism. The volume of preparation they invest, the distinctive nature of the work, it's merely a different perspective. So when you listen to position players, they are cognizant. They know. A player like Courtland Sutton understands there is no guarantee he will be available for 17 complete contests, which he wasn't this season, but a full season and multiple playoff games. He is aware. Therefore, when your quarterback sustains an injury, you are deprived of this chance to compete in a Super Bowl. Sour grapes is akin to merely losing a contest, losing an AFC championship game, and merely feeling you were the superior team, but you lost. Whether it was due to subpar performance that specific game, an unfavorable officiating decision, a muffed punt, I'm uncertain. You simply feel, we should have secured that victory. It differs from what we observed with the Stidham scenario, correct? Because you could still believe you should have won that game, even with Stidham, but it's a different magnitude that I am striving to emphasize here. And it's simply a letdown. It's somewhat devastating. I mean, it genuinely is. And I simply do not believe we examine that sufficiently, because we are so apprehensive about engaging in that variety of discourse, fearing it detracts from the New England Patriots' accomplishments. This is something I've noted from producing numerous videos and participating in these discussions, that individuals often become genuinely irritated by a take if you state, the Broncos should have won that game, or the Rams should have won. Utilizing this season alone, the Panthers should have defeated the Rams. They simply should have. And they did not. And people respond, that diminishes the Rams' achievement. And it's like, no, it merely signifies the Panthers should have won that game. The Eagles and the 49ers. To me, that contest emphasized the strategic brilliance and coaching of the 49ers, but it also highlighted the deficient coaching and execution from the Eagles. The Eagles should have secured that victory. From my vantage point, it does not subtract from what the 49ers have managed to accomplish, but people consistently interpret it that manner. Consequently, you can concurrently laud everything the Patriots have achieved and still perceive that, yeah, the Broncos should have, or could have, won that game. And it certainly would have been altered with Bo Nix. That is not an exaggeration by any interpretation. And following that game, people were genuinely hesitant to articulate that with conviction, and it became more focused on conducting a love fest for the New England Patriots, to the extent that an individual was quite upset. A longtime subscriber who enrolled early in the season was essentially angered by my analysis post-game, stating, "You're solely concentrating on the Broncos, and that's inequitable. You're not discussing any of the exceptional feats we executed." And my response was, "I will discuss all the exceptional feats you executed, and Drake May rising to the occasion, and I will discuss your team for the subsequent 2 weeks. But the pertinent conversation can still involve the Denver Broncos. We can still conduct that dialogue. We can still underscore that. We can still amplify that. And it is not to imply we will now dwell on it for the ensuing year or indefinitely. We will not examine this 2 years hence and remark, if only Bo hadn't been injured. That is not the subsequent action either. But I'm uncertain. I believe if you are a Broncos supporter, and particularly if you are within the Denver Broncos organization, it is a challenging reality to accept. All the conversations they are conducting about the New England Patriots, you could very well tell yourself, that should be the Denver Broncos. Whether it should or should not is immaterial. But it is completely legitimate to assert it should, correct? It is more justified for the Broncos to articulate that than for the Eagles to articulate that regarding the 49ers to declare, that should be us. With the Eagles, you committed numerous errors. You wagered and lost. You merit a considerable portion of blame for your situation. You cannot genuinely assert that comprehensively with the Denver Broncos, currently. So it's simply challenging. It's arduous. And it's a disappointment. And again, it is not to assert we should now wallow in pity or that you will obsess over it or that it should now be utilized as a method to diminish the New England Patriots. But yeah, I simply believe it's a difficult reality to disseminate. It's the commentary I wish to formulate regarding that subject because I cannot discuss the Denver Broncos advancing to the Super Bowl. I cannot discuss whether Bo Nix could outperform, which narrative is more compelling, Bo Nix or Sam Darnold. We cannot have that conversation. That's a disappointment. That is a letdown. Listen, I've mentioned this to you all previously. I've become very communal. I've become somewhat like my mother. I'm thinking, I desire to witness Bo Nix in the Super Bowl. I desire to witness Drake May in the Super Bowl. I want to witness all of them. I'm urging, let's go. Everyone merits an opportunity. From a purely entertainment viewpoint, I want to observe their capabilities. I don't wish to solely witness Mahomes. I don't desire to witness the identical individuals every single year. I adored that this year we were going to have a completely different AFC Championship game featuring 2 entirely different quarterbacks, Drake May and Bo Nix. I cherished that. And we forfeited that. We lost that. Observing Sam Darnold and Matthew Stafford was remarkable. I don't require witnessing the identical quarterbacks, the identical teams, repeatedly. And now we are obtaining a highly distinctive Super Bowl between Drake May and Sam Darnold. But if you are a Denver Broncos enthusiast, it is acceptable to believe it should be Bo Nix confronting Sam Darnold. And if you were the premier team, the #1 seed, and now you're progressing to the Super Bowl, why should you feel you lack a legitimate chance to prevail? Your defense is outstanding. Why would you not feel you could disrupt Sam Darnold and that Seahawks offense? Why would you lack confidence in your capacity to achieve that? Therefore, not only are you devastated that you did not reach the Super Bowl, but you also possessed a genuine opportunity, not merely to reach the Super Bowl, but to secure the Super Bowl. That is not sour grapes. That is the brutal odyssey of life, necessitating acceptance of circumstances genuinely beyond your control, and merely a sensation of, if only, blank. That is arduous. We are all essentially grappling with various instances of that throughout our existences. I know I do. I engage in it frequently with numerous significant aspects of my life where I simply think, if only blank. If only I had turned left instead of right. My entire existence could literally be different. Literally. And occasionally it results positively. Occasionally it's, thank goodness I proceeded left instead of right, or right instead of left. I believed that was the path, but thankfully it wasn't. But with football, with athletics, when it solely concerns winning and losing and an opportunity to secure a championship or not, it's challenging to conclude, well, this is actually probably beneficial. It's slightly more difficult to discern the significance in that, the value in that, and how it potentially positions you on a more favorable trajectory. It's like, listen, Dan Marino was actually superior because he never won. I'm skeptical about that. So, it's challenging. I suppose perhaps if he had won, he wouldn't have been in Ace Ventura, so he wouldn't have appeared in films, wouldn't have been in pictures. But those are merely my reflections. I would be delighted to hear yours. What are your thoughts regarding the Denver Broncos, sour grapes, how they should be feeling presently? Inform me of your perspectives. I peruse every single comment. So, whether you concur or dissent, let's engage in some discussions. Let's engage in some debates. But ultimately, let's simply derive some enjoyment. And please contemplate subscribing. We are constructing a phenomenal community here, and I would be thrilled to have you participate. I aspire to build something we all authentically feel linked to, something we are genuinely enthusiastic to be a component of. I believe we are substantially progressing toward that objective. Please remember to approve this video with a positive rating, as it genuinely assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you immensely. I will see you next time.